how about if we take on that ownership and say, we are the surveyors every day. We are the ones that are going to hold ourselves accountable for the patient outcomes. Never mind the survey. Guess what? If you are doing what's right by the patients, you cannot fail the survey because they go hand in hand. So following the regulations are going to give you the outcomes, following the standard of care, those evidence-based guidelines. Doesn't matter the setting that you're working in.
Infection stops where information starts. Welcome to the Transmission Control Podcast, where knowledge is your strongest defense. Broadcasting from the front lines of healthcare, we dive into the strategies, science, and stories shaping infection prevention today. Each episode, we connect you with experts on real-world insights to help you stop the spread of healthcare-associated infections, protect patients, and strengthen your practices as an infection prevention and public health expert. When the right information reaches the right people, lives are saved.
Hello and welcome to the Transmission Control Podcast, Season 2. We're talking about Citation Nation, preparing for the quote-unquote perfect survey. Today we're joined by Joy A. McMillan to talk about what we can do in our daily practice to have a perfect playbook for survey readiness. We'll be back after a brief word from our sponsors.
Brought to you from the studios of Healthcare HQ, let's get into it. This is Transmission Control.
Hello and welcome to the Transmission Control Podcast. My name is Garrett Hollenbeek, Editor-in-Chief of Transmission Control, and I'm joined by my co-host, Jill Holdsworth. Jill, how are you today?
Hey, doing great.
Good. And this is exciting because this is actually our kind of finale episode for Season 2, Citation Nation of Transmission Control. And I couldn't think of a better guest to have on than Joy McMillan. How are you, Joy?
I'm doing well. How are you?
We are good. We are good. And so Joy, I met you at this most recent APIC in person, but I had seen a lot of your online presence, especially on LinkedIn. And one of the things that caught my eye was these great kind of bite-sized educational posts about survey readiness and accreditation readiness. So that really caught our eye. And then if the audience hasn't seen those, go and check out Joy's LinkedIn page because there's a lot of great education to see on there. So thank you for joining us today.
And what a lot of people would love to know is, how do you do it? Is it AI generated? Are you sitting there and putting those together on some kind of software? I mean, literally my friends and I talk about it. Like, how is she coming up with all this content on her own? And one of my friends said it has to be AI. There's no way she's putting out that much stuff on her own.
So you are so right when it comes to that. It's not specifically AI, but I have a team that's working with me on it. And so I give my passion and what I know the problems are and what I know the fixes should be. And then I task them with, hey, make this graphic for me because it's gotta, you want something that's really just going to hit someone in the face with just what they need and not too much. But you want the information to get out there to the public. You want to educate people in little bite-sized areas. And the goal, I think, is really to make sure that everybody has the opportunity, if they choose to be, right? It's all about a choice at this point. If they choose to want to be proactive when it comes to regulatory compliance, we're giving them the nuggets. All they really have to do is take the ball and run with it and ask for help when they need it.
That's excellent. That's a great approach too, because they'll see something maybe a week before they need it or a couple days before they need it, and then they'll be able to put it into practice. So before we get too deep into this episode, Joy wants you to introduce yourself and your background and how you became to have the presence you have in the IP space.
Okay, my name is Joy A. McMillan, and I throw that A in there because there's a playwright out there that's got Joy McMillan, and she's an Oscar winner. Oh. I'm not. So
not yet.
Not yet. But I am a nurse over 30 years. So it's just good to just keep it cute with it, right? That's my background. I got my MBA in healthcare administration. I've been doing infection control and regulatory compliance most of the time that I've been in nursing. I've been a director of nursing, regional director of nursing. I have a passion for long-term care and post-acute in general. So some hospitals fall into that category, but they're the ones with the least amount of resources. And really, my goal is really to set them up for success if they allow me to, right? So that's really why I started my business. That is why I created JAT Infection Control Experts. And that's why I continue, like you said, to post information, because the goal is to empower people. You've got new people in roles. You got people that have been in roles, but they just haven't been taught. And so a lot of it is about changing the culture of facilities sometimes. So getting that information out there, I think, is a great thing.
The reason I love what you post so much is because of those graphics, because people learn in such different ways. And what you're posting, it has pictures, it has words, it sometimes has the article stuff to go with it. So no matter how you like to learn or how you learn best, your posts have whatever somebody needs to learn in the way that they learn best. And the graphics are what's, eye-catching, because there aren't a lot of great posters and graphic things that, maybe come out of the CDC or whatever.
Right.
And so what you're posting is just kind of state of the art. It's new, it's fresh, it's fun, and it's easy to absorb no matter how long you've been doing this. And then if you want to learn a little bit more, then you can go read something that's all words. And to kind of pull off that, Garrett and I, we all see you really active on LinkedIn. Is there anywhere else that you're really active?
So what I do is I take that information. Sometimes I've started taking that information and posting on my Facebook page. And so
I'll have to head over there next.
It was strange because, I actually got a client that reached out to me, and she's like, my DON told me to reach out to you because he saw a post on Facebook, and she's holding up the actual graphic and she was like, I had to print it out. I had to this. And I was like, oh, and I hadn't really been that active on Facebook. I'm not a Facebook girl, but today I'm a Facebook girl now. I am a Facebook girl now. So listen, content is content.
There's a generation of us that still does Facebook a lot. My kids make fun of me for it because we're like the people that were born in the 1900s is how they say it. So some of
nice
us
way to put it.
Yeah, isn't that really sweet? So some of us are still very active on Facebook, but there's so many social media platforms out there these days. It's almost like you kind of have to be active on all of them. So you make sure you catch everybody. Right. And that's overwhelming to somebody like you that's promoting their business and all of their graphics. And you don't want to miss somebody, but you can't possibly keep up with all of them.
Yeah, you're right. It's you want to target where you think you have the most audience. And what I like about Facebook is you have people that are professional that use Facebook every day just for their common stuff, but they have these groups. And so once you get in those groups, you're now in that target audience of these professionals. Whereas in LinkedIn, you just assume everybody who's following certain, trends and, whether it's infection control or regulatory compliance or both. That's my jam is both, right? I could do all of the Joint Commission standards, all of CMS's standards. I just love infection control as well. And they play hand in hand. But yeah, I am getting a lot more active. I make sure that I at least get whatever's on LinkedIn on Facebook and then get it out to those groups so that people can see and understand. And yeah, it has actually increased my business by doing that, which I didn't think to do.
That's a great message, too, for the audience, that sometimes we get a little bit shy about putting our work out on social media and think, well, nobody's going to care about this, or I'm going to say something that somebody's going to argue with or disagree with. But really, when you think about infection prevention, germs are going all the time. Viruses are never stopping. Whatever opportunity they have, they're going to take advantage of that. And so we on the defense can do the same thing. We can take every advantage and cross-post and promote other people in the space. And if we have those opportunities, we might as well take them. So I think that's a good encouragement to people out there that said, even if you don't have a 9-month, 12-month strategy for what my educational content's going to be, you have one thing to say, put it out there. Let somebody else is going to benefit from what you're experiencing right now.
And that's the key, is you really never know, right? So it may not be for that person, but then I've seen people tag other people that need to see it. So they understand what somebody else may be going through. It may not be for them, but they're bringing somebody else into it. So it's, social media is it can be daunting, like you said, if you're just trying to be everywhere at the same time. However, it reaches a lot of people. So that's the goal, is to educate and, empower everyone.
It is. And one of the pieces of education that we saw recently was this daily readiness mindset for survey preparedness. And this whole season, we've been talking about rethinking kind of what a perfect survey looks like. A perfect survey may not be one without any citations, but it really should be an experience that we use to drive towards better patient safety, better employee safety. And so to you, Joy, what does it mean to have an everyday readiness mindset?
So everyday readiness mindset for me is that I am now looking every day. I am the surveyor every day. Everyone in the facility has been taught their role and what they need to do, what they need to look for, so that, number one, they don't get nervous when it's survey time. You're not sitting here ramping up, oh my God, Joint Commission or whoever it is coming in, or it's time for state survey. No. The goal is, if you brush your teeth every day, you don't get nervous if somebody is watching you brush your teeth. You just brush your teeth because that's what you do. So in the same fashion, if you are doing the daily things that you should be doing, and that's where monitoring and auditing come in, right? If you're not doing those mock surveys and giving them that just-in-time training, people are going to, you can teach them. It does not mean that they're going to actually apply it when the time comes. People get busy. Most of the time, I can truly say it's not because they're trying to cause harm to anyone. So that's why when you're helping them to understand, you have to help them understand that this is not the right practice and this is what can be caused by you doing this, right? And so that they understand the why behind it. And hopefully that will change practice. That consistency though, because they can't, and remember, it's not everyday survey readiness. I know the surveyors are usually there in the day, but guess what? Who's looking at 3 to 11? Who's looking at 11 to 7 or 7P to 7A or the weekends, right? We can't forget that because it's a total group effort. And so everybody who's all of the departments that are in the building, even administration, they have a role to play in infection prevention and control, right? How they greet people, what signage is right there when you walk through the front door. Do you have masks available? Do you have tissue available? Sanitizer, something for them to discard their stuff. Respiratory season is right here, right? So here we go. It's the little things every day and not trying to just ram everything down someone's throat at the last minute, because then they will be overwhelmed. And then look at it. It's about quality, right? It's not about passing a survey. It's about elevating the quality of care someone gets when they come to us.
I think that's the most important thing that you said is what is the purpose of these surveys? I think that is so often overlooked and missed because people get so nervous about these surveys. They just want to pass. They just don't want to get cited. But why do we even have these surveys in the first place? Why do we have these standards? And connecting back to the purpose of the surveys, I think, is so important. But even the leaders don't focus on that. And that is truly what we need to do more of. Why are we trying to pass the survey? Because it makes us safer and it elevates that quality of care. So thinking about the 3 to 11, the night shift, the weekends, all of those things, that is so important. And sometimes people say, well, I work on the night shift, so I don't have to deal with management and surveys and all of these things. But you still need to be doing the exact same things because they're done for a purpose.
And it's a real true point, because think about it. If you don't have that person that is going to be following that same procedure that you're doing during the day or during the evening, right? At night, you've got to have somebody to do those audits at night to monitor for compliance, right? And it should be a team effort. The best turnaround in hand hygiene that I've had was I used to use secret shoppers, but the secret shoppers that I used the most were the ones that were the least compliant. So then I handed them and taught them and said, okay, you're our secret shopper for today. These are the things that you're looking for. This is what has to be done. So I need for you to document all of the roles and everybody who's doing what. And it happens every day. So, but now what happens when they're doing it? Their mindset is, oh my goodness, somebody could be looking at me. Let me make sure that I'm doing this right, right? So there are little tricks to the trade to help you get through it.
I like that approach too, of using somebody's maybe opportunity for education as a way to make them a good example. And we did that when I managed sterile processing. If somebody kind of botched a tray, we'd say, all right, you're going to learn how to do this right. And then this Wednesday, you're going to lead the in-service on this tray specifically. So we didn't announce it and we didn't shame it. We didn't say, I think people kind of caught on after a while, like, hey, you're presenting this because you messed it up, and that's okay. But then they became experts and other people would come to them and say, hey, I saw you do a really good job in that in-service. Can you show me how to do it? So do you find you get better results when you break things down into like, hey, we're going to look at one thing. Today we're going to look at, do you have masks at your ED entrance or do you have hand sanitizer? Because I think sometimes we get lost in like the big checklists instead of looking at one or two or a handful of focused things.
And that's a great question, because if you do too much too often, people are bogged down. And so they rush through, number one. They're not really taking the time to make sure that what they're focused on is truly, you can look at everything and you've got this long list of everything, but the list is so long. I mean, look at all the things that really can be touched by infection prevention and control, right? So you've got PPE usage, you've got hand sanitizer, you've got sterile processing, you've got, you never mind your HVAC systems and your environment of care and any construction that might have to be done. So you don't want them on overdrive. We want a focused approach and two or three things, for the day, because there are a lot of areas for them to look at those two or three things. And then it gives you an opportunity to give that great feedback, small little micro bites in the huddles, things like that, making sure everybody is on the same page. It doesn't do anybody any good to sit there and have a policy and procedure on whatever it is, and the DON can speak to it, the head of this department can speak to it. That's not who the surveys want to see. And to be honest, they're not the ones that are providing the care. So they're not the ones that are impacting the outcomes. It's the hands-on staff. They're the ones.
Now, when talking about ways that we can get this from kind of we know what we should do to doing it in practice, you shared 5 rules for survey readiness. And I want to kind of list these out and then get your take on them, because I think some of them may strike us as like counterintuitive or maybe different than how we always do things. So these were behavior over binders, real-time answers, visible readiness, and then random spot checks. And I'm curious how you got to these rules of survey readiness, and then if there's any missing pieces that we can consider for rethinking our mindset.
So behavior over binders, think about this. We're talking policy and procedures. We've got enough stuff in our binders that show that our organization understands what compliance means. But when you're out there and you're looking at the practice of what's going on, are they doing what the policy and procedure says, right? And so it's great you need the binder. It's not like the binder does no good. There are certain things that they expect to see when they walk in, and they're in that binder. But guess what happens? They're going to make their rounds, and they're going to do their tracers or whatever the surveyors are doing. And while they're looking at the practice. They're looking at the behavior. And so if the behavior is not jiving with what you've got in that binder, there lies the problem. And then that's just, like I said, that's the problem for the survey, right? But it's actually the problem for your outcomes, right? Because you don't have those quality outcomes because there's deviation from the two. So when it comes to behavior over binders, that's where that comes. I would say real-time response, you're not going to sit back and, like I said, they're not going to want to hear from me as the leader. The staff need to know. The staff needs to understand. Remember when we were talking about just-in-time training and how important it was for you to explain to them not just what the right process is, but the why. If they don't understand it, if they can't speak to it, everything in that book is kind of null and void when it comes to the surveyors, right? That's just the reality of that. And I think when it comes to visibility, now you can have, let's just talk about, I love to look at PPE usage, right? PPE usage, you can have all the right equipment available. It can be in the right place, the proper signage, but are they following the right donning and doffing procedures? Are they doing what needs to be done when they walk into whatever type of room it is? And even how have we gotten away from standard precautions, right? PPE is for all of these things, for, transmission-based precautions, but it's also for standard precautions as well. And are they actually doing it the way they should be? Are we monitoring that? So just having it there It's almost like having hand sanitizer on the hall outside or in the room inside, right? If they're not utilizing it, and how do we know if they're using it? Sometimes there are things you can see, there's things you can't see. But one thing that you can do is look at your burn rate. I mean, you know who's on infection control precautions, isolation precautions, right? We know that from our records. But how many times are they replenishing the stock, right? There's so many ways to look at that. And I think that when you take the time to really look at what it really means and how it affects the patient outcomes and what you really want to do, just like I said, the policy is not going to be good enough. They have to be able to walk it. They've got to be able to use it. They have to understand how to use it. Random spot checks for me, I think the key to that is every staff member needs to understand the process of, like I said, that walkthrough. There are a lot of times you don't have to do that walkthrough by yourself. Yes, that may be your role, but are you really helping the people that are working in the field next to you, right? Or the ones that are providing the hands-on care? How about we make these rounds together? How about you can see what my eyes see? So in other words, it's not Miss Joy got her glasses on, right? Miss Joy got her glasses on. Miss Jill got her glasses on, and Garrett has his glasses on. We're all looking in the same lens, which is this is a patient safety concern right here. And so let's look at all of the ways so that when they're actually out and about on the unit or communicating with everybody else that maybe they're training someone, right? They need to be understanding why we're doing what we're doing and what's important for us to look for. And I think that's key for continued success. And I think lastly, we went over 4, but there's what I call a 3-minute rule. And it's almost like, well, let's look to see what's going to happen at this point in time is the normal, right? Before everybody knows when the window opens for Joint Commission, DNV, CMS, right? But how about if we take on that ownership and say, we are the surveyors every day. We are the ones that are going to hold ourselves accountable for the patient outcomes. Never mind the survey. Guess what? If you are doing what's right by the patients, you cannot fail the survey because they go hand in hand. So following the regulations are going to give you the outcomes. Following the standard of care, those evidence-based guidelines, doesn't matter the setting that you're working in. If you do that...
I think part of the problem with some of this is the kind of culture that we have always lived in healthcare, that surveys are scary. And if your nursing unit fails something, then you get an action plan. Same thing with hand hygiene results, even. If you're... I see it all the time. They're like, well, we got a low hand hygiene rate this month, so now we have to do all this stuff because you guys marked us down. But you get an action plan, if you get cited for something on a survey. And so it's like, it's almost inevitable that you aren't going to have this kind of negative feeling about a survey instead of saying, even though we want to have that internal, we're all surveyors, we're all accountable, that would be best case scenario, but then you're still going to get hit with the work of these action plans, and you have to do it quickly and drop everything because you have to do it within a certain amount of time, and they may be coming back for a resurvey, and so then you got the added stress, and it's just like this never ending cycle. And if you have DNV, then they get to come back every year to do this, this fun event. So, it is unfortunate that we have to think of surveys as this stressful, horrible event, because like Garrett said in the beginning, it should be a time to learn and to get better. And even though a perfect survey in your mind, you think no citations, really, if you got a survey with 0 citations, something's wrong with your surveyors, is what I would say, because you want a survey that is helpful to you, and surveyors should really be helping you along the way. Like, I learned something from the surveyors every time we have one, and it's a huge time of learning for everyone. But I do feel like it takes a little bit of experience to get to that point where you can listen to surveyors and not like just want to cry and crawl in a hole. But it is very hard for the staff to feel that way. And I wish there was this magic pixie dust or something we could sprinkle on people to make them not nervous.
Well, okay, so you talked about magic pixie dust. So the way I look at it is like this. And I've utilized this in many different settings, and it's just worked out. Maybe God has smiled upon me and the teams that I was chosen to work with. But when you are providing them every single day, continued feedback, and when you do it in such a way that my approach to people, I try and be very approachable. I try and provide the same education. You say you learn from surveyors. That's the goal. They're here to not just show you what's wrong, but best practice, right? And so to take that information and to share it while you're in the day-to-day, because it is, everybody knows when survey shows up, everyone's going to be nervous. It's just reality. I always used to start off, and I don't know how everybody's mindset is when it comes to religion, but every survey, I gathered my whole team and we started off in prayer, and we asked for us to do exactly what we've been taught to do every day, all the things that we have been doing for us to now shine. And this is an opportunity to show off the great work that you've been doing. Now, when we find opportunities for improvement, those are just that. They're opportunities. If we miss something, okay, we have an opportunity to fix that. But then it also looks at the just culture. Are you coming down on the staff because one person actually made a mistake, and in reality, this is a system-wide issue, right? So rather than just pointing the finger, really looking at, okay, this happened. Now let's get down to the bottom of why this happened and how we can prevent it from happening again. And yes, we got to do our plan of correction, plan of action, and all those things. It's tedious. Nobody loves it. But it doesn't have to be. I've seen it be a lot harsher in some organizations than in others. And that comes from leadership, to be honest. That comes from top down. I mean, if you want things to be reported, it's like somebody saying, yeah, we had 0 med errors for the year. Come on now. That means people are not comfortable reporting it. That's just reality. Yes. That means they're doing a little something with those numbers, because there's no way. It's just not realistic. So staying in that realistic zone and trying to really hone on it and keep everybody, like understanding this is a team effort. We win or we fail as a team.
I love that. And I think that's the perfect note for people to take home, that we want to play these surveys to the best of our ability, and that getting that practice in and getting those reps in take those, daily bite-sized pieces of education, of implementation. And I think you exemplified that very well in your practice. So, Joy, I want to thank you so much for the insights you shared today. And there is a whole wealth of other, outside of, what you're going to hear on this podcast for the audience. Go and check out all of the other great work that Joy is doing and share with us what you learned, because there's great resources out there for infection prevention for all accreditation areas. So thank you very much for joining us.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
All right. That was an awesome episode with Joy. And I loved how we started off talking about the power of social media and how different generations kind of are into different types of social media. Some people like to learn differently. Some people are more apt to pull into graphics. Some people like to read the white papers better, and some people just like to do it all. And Joy has really taken social media by storm with the way that she posts and puts out information in some of the most creative ways. So listen to this episode and then head right over to LinkedIn and start looking at all of her content.
Yeah, it really is great. And what I liked about the explanation she offered about how to have a daily mindset of survey readiness is all of those things were things you do out on the floor interacting with staff. There's plenty of office work for us to do as IPs, but that boots on the ground work where we're interacting one-on-one with staff members is how we build that culture of compliance. So another great episode. And as we wrap up season 2, we want to thank Joy McMillan for being a guest. Joy A. McMillan, as she reminded us. That was a fun piece of trivia. But we want to thank all of our guests for this season. And remember, infection stops where information starts.
Thanks for tuning in to the Transmission Control Podcast, where infection stops because information starts. If you enjoyed this episode, let us know. Connect with us on LinkedIn, Facebook, or wherever you get your podcasts. Don't forget to leave a 5-star rating and share this episode with your team. Until next time, stay informed, stay vigilant, and keep transmission under control.